from the current comprehensive plan that was introduced by the Planning Commission during Mr. Snook's testimony.
Okay.
Okay. Isn't it true that PC 24 does not show any pedestrian or trail connectivity to the intersection of 202 and 926 adjacent to the Crebilly property?
This exhibit does not appear to show any connectivity to 926 and 202.
Okay, so is it your testimony then is inconsistent with the PC 24 with respect to suggesting connectivity to 926 and 202's intersection for pedestrians?
Without looking further into the context of this exhibit, I couldn't say that. I would just suggest that there is a natural connectivity between residential and non-residential uses, and as a professional, I would expect residents from this development to walk to the commercial facilities at that intersection.
So, Mr. Federico, then you're saying that if I'm not mistaken, sometimes you do things that are different than what are shown on the comprehensive plan. Is that correct?
What I'm saying is, in my opinion, there is a draw between residential and commercial, and that I would expect people to walk between the two.
Regardless of the comprehensive plan not showing a connection there.
I don't expect the pedestrians to read the comprehensive plan before they decide to walk to CVS.
Okay. I don't think they would either. I believe in your conclusion on your testimony, you were looking at the 2009 section, the conditional use standards. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I think section 2009 DH1 states that one of the standards is the use will not result in or substantially add to a significant traffic hazard or significant traffic congestion. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Greg, what section was that, please?
2009, D as in David, 1, H as in Howard.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm sorry, Mr. Federico, did you say yes? That's what it says?
Yes.
Okay. As part of your review of the traffic impact study submitted by Toll, did you review the trip generation for the proposed development?
Yes.
Okay. And did the trip generation, let's strike that, was the trip generation that which you would normally expect of a similarly sized residential development?
Yes, it was assumed to be within industry standards for such a development.
Okay, and it was not, as we say, it wasn't abnormal, correct?
Not as presented in the traffic study, no.
Okay. And I believe you had testified that you did not believe the submitted conditional use plan, okay, sufficiently dealt with the traffic impacts. Is that correct?
Yes.
Would your opinion change if you were to include the exhibits that dealt with the site distances that were provided by the applicant in response to your comment?
To a point, yes, it would change.
To what point, sir?
There were still some of the questions about the grading associated with the approaches to West Pleasant Grove Road that I don't believe the exhibit adequately addressed. But yes, if the grading and other elements associated with providing the adequate site distance and the safe access, yes, that would have changed my opinion, or influenced my opinion.
And influence your opinion to opine that it did satisfy or deal with the impacts?
If we're also referring to the roundabout exhibit being included, then quite likely, yes.
Okay. All right. I understand your answer. Thank you. And again, there was, I guess, an opinion dealing with traffic congestion. Again, is your testimony that the trips generated by this proposed development, they're the normal type that you would other part of your testimony I wanted to ask a question about. You opined that the 926 New Street intersection was not an off-site intersection. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I believe your testimony was because it's adjacent to the site, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Is the proposed development utilizing that intersection directly for access to the proposed development?
I do not believe it is.
I have nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Federico.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the board, it is 5 after 9. Would you like to conclude for this evening? Would the board instead like to ask some questions that are fresh in your mind before we conclude? What is your preference on how you'd like to proceed at this point?
Carol, do you want to take a shot at that first? I'm happy to hear you here. Maybe she can't hear me. Scott, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, typically I would want the other parties to cross-examine before the board asks questions, if any. So that would be my view.
Would you like to then defer that tonight, Mr. Geller? Because we'll probably go for quite some time, or would you rather let the other parties all ask questions this evening until we finish?
No, I mean, I think we scheduled for 2 hours. I know we're a little short of 2 hours because of a little bit later start, but I'm not a big fan of breaking up the cross. So my view is this is a very good breaking point, and we can start back with the other parties with Al on cross at the next, at the continued hearing.
Okay.
Pat, I'll go along with what Scott just said with one caveat. I'm going to ask Eleanor, because it's something I would prefer not to wait for a month for a recall on this. Eleanor, the reference here would be the very last question that Ms. Camp asked Mr. Federico in that direct testimony, and it was literally just prior to the break. And I'm wondering if you could find that question from Ms. Camp and also relate to us what Mr. Federico's response was.
Sure, I'll go off the record for a minute to do that.
Thank you.
Question, and finally, in your professional opinion, has the applicant proven the proposed development will not result in or substantially add a significant traffic hazard or significant traffic congestion? Answer, not based on the submitted conditional use plan, no.
So, Al, I'll ask you again, it's related to your response to Ms. Camp, and then this testimony that you've given in response to Mr. Edelman's questions. Do you hold the same opinion based on the Q&A that took place with Kristen, your comment then, and the Q&A that took place between you and Mr. Edelman and your responses throughout?
Dick, I don't want to answer a question with a question, but I'm going to. And I'm still, I guess, a little unclear, and maybe, Pat, this is directed at you. What plan is before us for approval? My understanding, it's 847.
I'm going to object to that question. I think this is highly improper at this point in time to have a
Yeah, Al, I'm going to see if you can answer Mr. Pomerantz's question. Great. If you can, I understand. But if you want to qualify your answer in that you're not sure which plan you're discussing, that's fine. But I don't want to get into a back and forth of questions at this point.
Fair enough, and that's what I've been trying to do. So Dick, the qualified answer is, my understanding is that A47 is the plan that is before us. The applicant has provided exhibits that have shown what they can do, but my understanding is that A47 is what's before us. And that is not compliant, in my opinion. If some of these other things are incorporated, then the issues that I've raised can be addressed in many ways.
And I have one question too, if you don't have any more.
I was just going to follow up and just say that I do have a series of questions, but I'll wait until the next month or our next hearing for the rest of those questions. Carol?
Yeah, and I'm going to wait for most of mine, but I just want to know what and why you did not design the roundabout at the bottom or the south area of Orvis Road because of the availability and access and more, you know, it has connectivity to Orvis and one way, and then you can go around and then go southbound on 202. And it's all open church property that's not being used for anything. So I'd like to kind of hear why where it is versus what the advantage of that would be.
Where it is where it was presented by Toll Brothers. Over the course of the discussions with the Planning Commission, my recollection is we encouraged Toll Brothers to engage with the church. I think if they did, you suggested some sort of combined that rolls it all in together would have been feasible and preferable. But I have heard very limited reports of engagement with the church about these sort of things, and the design that you're seeing is what Toll Brothers presented to the township, not what we designed.
I'm going to have some more, but I'm going to quit. I have a lot on the roundabout and its location and style and type.
Okay, we do have a question that I think maybe we can, there's a raised hand, I think. Mila from Francis iPad. I'm not sure what that's about.
You should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, hi. Yeah, hi. So, I'm
Wait,
sorry,
wait,
I'm
wait.
not gonna...
Sir,
Yep.
just identify who you are, please.
Yes, I'm Frank McHugh. MCCUE.
And your address?
202 Piedmont Road, Westchester, Pennsylvania, 19382.
Can I ask a question? Are we cutting this off, Pat? Or are we going to public comment? Because
I'm trying to find out what the hand raise was for. Eleanor, did you get all that, or do we need to go back?
I'll read back what I got.
Okay.
Mr. McKenna, you asked, sir, just to identify who you are, please. Yes, I'm Frank McHugh. I'm Mr. McKenna, your address. Mr. McHugh, 202 Piedmont, Westtown, Westchester, Pennsylvania, 19382.
All right, Mr. McHugh, before you proceed, we're not asking for questions about the testimony from the public. So did you have a question about process or what's happened tonight or where we're headed?
No, I actually have a logistical question about about traffic in general. So I may have skipped may have jumped ahead. And if I have,
Okay.
That's fine, and you can move on.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Sure.
All right. If there's nothing further then from the board or the parties tonight, Mr. Federico will come back for our hearing in March.
Pat, I'm sorry, there is a raised hand. John Hillian has a raised hand on the camera.
Okay.
You unmuted?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I have a question. A lot of testimony has been given today, I'm really concerned that 30 days from now, the impact of testimony will be lost. There's some very important things that were raised today that I really think should be addressed. And I understand that it's been 2 hours, but again, the impact of the testimony is it's critical right now. So you're going to do what you're going to do. I just don't want the impact of the questions from the public and the testimony of the board to be lost because of a 30-day lag.
All right, well, I appreciate that, Mr. Hillian, but I believe it's the board's intention, given the proceedings and where we're at, to continue the hearing tonight. Parties will all have their opportunity to cross-examine Mr. Federico at the next hearing, and we'll come back to the board with any of their questions, and then Ms. Camp can do any redirect.
One comment, that we will have a written document of this hearing session that you can review and read before the next 30-day session.
Carol, they're not posted on the website, Carol, so we got to call.
You're kidding.
Hang on, folks.
They can get a copy, though.
Please, only one person speak at a time. Mr. Hellion, I'm going to move on.
I got one more question. Just one more question.
What's your question,
Will
sir?
I be able to question Mr. Edelman also?
No, he's not a witness. He's an attorney.
But he's made statements that are questionable.
Mr. Hellion, the answer is no. He's an attorney. He's not a witness.
Thank you. Okay.
Got it. Mr. Simkovich, hopefully this is a question on the process, because we're done the testimony for tonight.
Yeah, yes, it is. If people have a burning question or a key issue that's top of mind or fresh in mind tonight, can they email somebody to put it on the record or submit it in?
No, sir. It'll be your responsibility to ask that at the hearing, particularly if you're a party.
Okay.
Or if you want to have another party ask the question for you, you're able to do that, but you have to arrange that on your own.
It sounds like we need to have our questions tonight internally so that we can ask them at the next session.
Understood. That's entirely up to you.
All right, thank you.
Sure. I'm going to try one more time to conclude the hearing for tonight. If nobody else has any more raised hands, we're going to stand in continuance until March 23rd at 7 p.m. It will be via Zoom. Again, Mr. Federico will be back to testify. You'll all receive further correspondence, as I have with every time we've continued the hearing. The exhibits that were referenced tonight by Mr. Edelman will be posted on the township's website shortly, as they were not on there before tonight. And we're going to go off the record and conclude the hearing for this evening.
Thank you, Pat.
Eleanor, thank you for your patience tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good night, everyone.
Carol did not say it.